Welcome to the Good Life, Great Careers podcast. My name is Brian Civic, and I am the Director of Workforce Training and Development. And I'm joined once again with my co-host, Caitlin Betts, who is the Director of Talent Acquisition for the state of Nebraska. If you're new to listening to this podcast, our goal is to help evangelize the many career opportunities that are found within Nebraska state government. Not only is Nebraska state government one of the largest and most diverse employers within the state of Nebraska, but when it comes to career opportunities, but it's also just a great place to build and start your career and develop yourself professionally. If you want to check out any of the many opportunities that we currently have, you can go out to statejobs.nebraska.gov. And when you go there, look for the link along the top that says Find a State Job. Click on that and you can browse and search and find all of the great career opportunities that we currently have open. And so go out there and check that out and explore those opportunities. Our guest today, we're excited to have him on board and that he's joining us. His name is Kelly Lammers. He's the director of the Nebraska Department of Banking and Finance. Director Lammers has a storied career with state government that spans nearly 40 years. As the director of banking and finance, he has the privilege of working with hundreds of thousands of people on different topics that deal with money, people and businesses looking to be licensed as financial service providers, and almost 2 million looking to use the services of charter, securities, and money service providers. So, Kelly, we want to thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you. And let's just start off by handing it over to you, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Brian, thank you so very, very much. And I so appreciate this podcast opportunity to open the door in terms of what is available in the state of Nebraska is truly worthy of conversation. So, yeah, I do encourage anyone to click on that button and open the window to see what's available within the state of Nebraska. Asking about me, I'm one of those people that I got bored easy. My father, who I'm very blessed, he's still living, reminded me that I was changing jobs too much and I really needed to find a job I could stick with. And I started with the state of Nebraska 39 years ago, May 1st.
Wow. Yeah.
So, I apologize. I didn't bring you a cake, but, I ate some upstairs. It was very good. What have I done within the state of Nebraska has to do with wearing many hats. The state gives you that opportunity that as you become very proficient at one event, you can find out how to make that better. They're always interested in making things more efficient, more effective. And that sounds like, well, let's do more with less. And, actually, that's an element of just building trust. How does someone become very good, very proficient at a trade? I've wore titles that sound like examiner to senior examiner. I loved signing that first report of a senior examiner. And then I hated answering those first questions that come with, well, as a senior examiner, what did you think of this? That's kind of cool to say, what did you think of that? So as I wore different hats, we call them review examiners. Everybody else would call them supervisors. They would be people that talk to other people relative to how did we reach that conclusion? And did we think about that as we made that leap? I found that I was able to work with special projects. I loved pushing buttons, and I have to admire you have a control center here that just reminds me of Star Wars. This just takes me back with all these colored buttons. I became an IT administrator, something that, would you believe, a technician that made a career out of doing something that looks like spreadsheets today ended up becoming an IT administrator simply because the state enabled that. I became a deputy director, and now I'm serving with Governor Pillen's team, director. If you have the opportunity, thinking you want to be a director, I highly recommend it. That's a cool job to apply for as well. So, yeah, I've had a number of opportunities thanks to the state of Nebraska. Very, very much. It has been a lot of fun. And I have to admit, I'm planning on going back to work after this podcast. So I'm not quitting yet. So this isn't goodbye.
I understand when you first started your state career, you weren't thinking it was going to be something long-term. So what changed for you after you started with your first role?
I had absolutely no intention of planning anything on 2 years. My goal in life was to work for the state of Nebraska 2 years, to pick up a couple classes that I knew they would pay for, because quite honestly, I was tired of paying for student loan debt. And I was going to move on. So I'm in this chair today a failure. I have not moved on. What changed my life was very much that concept that we can do things simply by doing our job that make it so people trust the state of Nebraska. It was that big picture, and it might sound a little corny, and yet it really isn't. Every one of us have that ability to do something today that will make another person able to perform medical services, enable them to handle your money, enable them to drive down a highway in a way that we're going to trust them. Does that mean it's going to be perfect every day? We're people. It won't be perfect every day, but because of us, it's stronger. I believe in what we do, and that's kind of what changed it.
And it sounds like you do a lot of important work that impacts a lot of people. For our listeners that might not be familiar with the Department of Banking and Finance, can you tell us a little bit more about your agency and what you do?
The agency itself is 71 full-time equivalents. You know, when you talk about does your credit card work? Does your debit card work? Where is your money? Is it with a credit union? Is it with a bank? How is your savings set aside in terms of investments? Those people touch other people's money. Those are the people that we know about. So we license and regulate the people that touch other people's money. We wear 3 different kinds of hats, and absolutely we have job openings. If you're interested in one of the hats that we wear is called licensing. I have no idea if the listeners out there are familiar with a type of establishment that would be called an adult beverage center, maybe called a bar. It might have a person set out front that's called a bouncer back in a day. We're the gatekeeper. We're the bouncer. So that licensing desk, they go through and they say, are you the kind of person that would be trusted with other people's money? And they make a decision, make a licensing decision. And we rely heavily on that licensing desk to work with over 120,000 in our securities world, several thousands of individuals in our financial institution world. We also have examiners. Examiners use a great deal of training that goes beyond what you would have coming out of college. We learn a great deal about modeling, talk about policy and practice and how governance works in an organization. And then we say, is this great for a community? And we talk about making decisions relative to each financial institution. So examiners have a great deal of annual training for their first 4 years of experience with us. You'll end up in Washington, D.C. for training for about 6 individual trips. In addition to that, we will fill out performance evaluations that we share with our federal regulators for thousands of hours. It's a process. It would be called a grad degree in any other world. But it helps you understand that you're working with money launderers. You're working with people that are not doing what we would expect with other people's money. Know how to flag that, and at the same time, when things are good, you just move on to the next desk. And then we will work with policymakers. We have a number of attorneys. We write the vision relative to, right now, we're developing rules for the Financial Innovation Act. What is happening in Nebraska in the decade to come for how your money instruments should be crafted. So what we do is very much money focused. But anytime you talk about money, it's only what money does. And money helps people make their day-to-day decisions. It helps them plan for the future. It helps them plan for their retirement. We have fun doing it.
Well, it's very obvious speaking to you and listening to you that you're passionate about what you do and the mission of your agency. And so it's fantastic, the service that you and your agency provide. For yourself in your own career, maybe what's been one of the most unique or surprising things about your career within state government that maybe looking back you didn't expect as part of your career?
One thing that has shocked me is the rate of change. It is hard to believe that I started government and I was handed a manual typewriter. I was handed a leather briefcase that had 6 notebooks that reflected all of banking law, rules, and regulations. I was supposed to carry that at all times. And I was handed another briefcase that referenced the things that go together in creating what we call a report of exam. Today, all of that is electronic, as we would expect. The rate of change relative to basically the industry, the world itself, has to do with how we deliver trust. And it has to do with the fact that I came out of school and I expected everything to be in a book and I expected it to be written on a piece of paper. I'm working with an incredible team that's coming out of law college that we recently were on site, and they do an awful lot of their work electronic. So, what has shocked me is the fact that it doesn't matter how we package the fact that we considered and we reviewed and we made a decision. So the packaging doesn't make a difference, whether it's electronic or paper. It's the speed that we can reach the delivery. So what is shocking to me is how fast we're able to do what was once considered an impossible amount of work. And we're doing it today with a great deal of grace and a little bit of fun.
Yeah, it's having fun. And you talked a lot about, too, the great team that you have. It really helps to overcome challenges when you have that type of culture. What are some of the bigger challenges you face in your current role?
The bigger challenges have to do with the socialization of what we do. How do we explain to every generation out there? We have 5 generations in the workforce, which are amazing. First of all, thank you, everyone. You're working for the state of Nebraska. Greatly appreciate that. And at the same time, how do we explain to everyone that what they're doing is relevant? I have a socialization event in terms of it's incredibly important that I finish something called a report. At the end of that report, does that mean you get to go home when you're done? In school, if I was done with my project, I got to quit. Maybe at home, when I was done with my project, I got to go play when I was done. And yet at the same time, relative to the state, I need the project done, and then I need you to think about how we could plan to do something different. How could we do that bigger, better, faster, quicker? So what I'm getting at with relative to challenge, the speed of change and the development that we have out there, what I need is people to share their ideas. And does that mean we communicate through verbal words? Do we sit down around a table? Do we text each other? How do we make it so that we are engaged? So the challenge is probably it's that socialization that I would call communication. And the biggest challenge is simply, let's keep talking. Unless you'd prefer to text, I can text too. You might have to show me how, but I could.
You mentioned development, and when you were speaking about some of your positions you may have available, that there's opportunity to gain certifications that would maybe be equivalent to a graduate degree elsewhere. And I understand you have also had the opportunity to partake in some additional education and certifications through your role. How has that helped you and made a difference in your career?
The state of Nebraska has enabled an incredible career for me. I joined the state with a bachelor's degree from UNL. While I was working for the state, I worked with a UNL test program that was called distance learning. And they were testing back with VHS tapes the ability to record a lecture, and for somebody in Kearney, Nebraska that traveled the western part of Nebraska to take a graduate level class. And I finished my MBA through UNL while I was here. Since then, I've also had a graduate school of banking. I'm an alumni of that program. I have some certifications. If you're a techie out there, I'm a CISSP, CISA. I did some things relative to the technology side, and I have a few things in other areas. The list goes on. I've been doing this for 39 years. What I'm all getting at is the state has a need, and the state's saying that if there's a need for that and you can express the fact that you have the interest in doing that, we will bring that together. I have one team member that we have very largely paid for the MBA, a very technical position that I needed to understand in that role how management could be better engaged. An MBA would bring about the management development. He also worked through the state management programs as well. So had he not wanted to do the MBA, the internal programs would have worked as well. I have a number of team members that we pay tuition so that they have a better understanding of how communities work with each other. We work with the financing. We work with banks. Banks turn around and invest in their own communities. Work with credit unions that do something very similar. So as a result of that, we're looking for the type of people that can engage with those people, being corrective relative to what a governmental posture should be, and at the same time enabling. Nebraska legislation requires the department to be a resource enabling. So as a result of that legislative status, we offer a great deal of training to various desks, if you will. I have a public information officer, a new, incredibly interesting piece on the fact that we've got to focus on communication, a focus on social. I believe she's traveling out of state in the week to come just to pick up additional training. This particular travel may not include certification, but it's with the National Association of State Security Supervisors. So she's learning how other states talk about protecting investors. So do a lot of things that if people have interest in learning a craft and honing a craft, we are forever finding and learning and changing within the state of Nebraska.
I love to hear how your agency is investing in your teammates and affording those opportunities. It just speaks to the heart of what we're trying to evangelize of this is a fantastic place to build a career. And so to hear that just is wonderful. I want to build on that a little bit. If someone is interested, maybe they're just starting out in their career, or maybe they're looking for a career change and they're interested in your particular field, banking and finance, maybe to come work for the state or maybe in another capacity. But what advice would you give someone who's looking for a career in that field, either starting out or maybe a change in their current career?
I know you will be shocked by this, but there are very few people that come out of preschool and say they want to grow up to be a bank examiner. In my mind, it would have to be up there with firemen or something like that. And I say that in jest. What I am getting at is the state is offering fields, professions. My agency, I'm incredibly proud of them. And yes, I want you to apply with me. There are other jobs out there within the state. What I'm getting at is call us, talk to one of our teammates. Every one of them are developing a career. We are opening windows. And yes, do we have that openings? That means they step through and walk to another position. If you have interest in doing this kind of thing, click on that button that you're talking about and apply for a job. That's a great way to do it. But when you apply, come to the interview. You can always say no.
Yep.
Ask us questions instead of just sitting there and letting us ask you questions. Give me a call ahead of time. My number is available on our website. My direct cell phone number for anybody on the podcast. If you're caring enough to listen to a podcast, call me direct, 402-417-8982. Let's talk about a career within banking and finance. If you're looking at the state, I would highly recommend that as well. I'm probably not as qualified as others for that. But no, I had no intention of staying with the state. I had absolutely no intention of staying one place for 39 years. My goodness, that sounds boring. How could anybody possibly think that's a great idea? But I haven't stayed one place 1 year. Well, I've stayed with the same employer, but I've been an IT administrator. I've worked with over 100 different banks, more than 50 different credit unions. I worked with the lawmakers that created the Nebraska Credit Card Act.
If our listeners are interested in learning more about some of the cool things that your agency does, or just more about your agency in general, besides calling you directly, how can they learn more about you?
On LinkedIn, we have a web page, www.ndbf.nebraska.gov. Yes, that's a long handle. We also, thanks to innovative thinking, we have Facebook. So yes, we're working on other avenues as well. I think one of those things that we can do better on is communicate. So I'm optimistic there will be more out there to come. But yeah, those are the great ways to look us up as well as give us a call.
Well, as mentioned, we'll move on to our famous rapid fire questions if you're ready. Well, start out with maybe an easy one.
I hope you start out easy. Yeah, this one has kept me up at night. I was trying to think of what would be a fast question. So looking forward to that.
All right. Your favorite day of the week?
Oh, man, it would have to end with a Y. Let's go with Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay.
Yes.
All right. If you could only choose one, would you order an appetizer or a dessert?
Oh, my goodness. Do they make salty desserts that have salsa? Yes, let's go with the dessert. It would have to be cheesecake, yes.
It's a good choice.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about summer?
Kayaking. I love to kayak. Hobby picked up from Game and Parks, another state agency. And it is a chance to get out and see Nebraska lakes. And I like to kayak.
Where's your favorite place to kayak?
Pawnee, outside of Lincoln, just a little bit. It's one of those things. Again, how do you work in a big city? And I can get off work. I'm home in 30 minutes, and I'm in the kayak in another 20. So see you some Tuesday nights, Pawnee Lake. So,
when you were a kid, what was your first career that you dreamed of having?
I was going to be a jet pilot. I had watched a movie called Johnny Quest, and he flew this airplane all around. And then immediately following that was a naval movie, and they had aircraft carriers. So I converted my tricycle to an airplane, and I would ride my tricycle up and down, and it never had lift. And I was always a researcher. I got an encyclopedia out and read about wings. So then I tied a 2x4 to that. Still didn't work. So then I put it on top of the picnic table, and my mom yelled at me to take that down. And as soon as she was gone, I got up on the picnic table, and I had an aircraft carrier. And I was going to be a jet pilot, and I learned all about broken bones.
Oh, no.
Yes. So, yeah, I'm not a pilot.
If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
Oh, banking and finance. It's the incredible opportunity of people meeting like minds and seeing a future. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity here in Nebraska.
What's the best place you've traveled to?
Wow. As an examiner in Western Nebraska, I've been to a lot of incredibly great eateries that were small town bars, quite honestly, and Toadstool Park. If you have not been to Nebraska's Toadstool Park, you're simply missing out. I have traveled many other cities, thanks to the state of Nebraska sending me to work there. Toadstool Park, it's worth talking about.
Add that to my list of places to check out.
There we go.
If you could instantly become an expert in something, what would it be?
Communication. I believe there is so much opportunity in today's world for us to have a meeting of the minds, and we have more passion today than we've ever had. Just look at, any kind of social media. And yet I think in all the talk, we're losing some of the communication. I need to become better.
What's your favorite lunch spot?
Wow, my most common would be my desk. And likely my most favorite would be any place that has the opportunity to talk to somebody that is talking about what would otherwise be shared at my desk.
Any final career advice you would give for someone just starting out?
I started out earlier on the fact that in order to have a really good time at a party, I have to go to the party. I remember a few times when I was a beginning examiner in Western Nebraska, I really thought some of those old timers were stupid. And I thought, why in the world am I sitting in the room with them? And they would talk about the things that they were seeing in the files, and they'd talk about their weekend and everything else too. And I learned a great deal from those people. So if you're starting out today, I encourage you to take the time, and I agree it's going to be a sacrifice, but take the time to participate. What you have is a talent that we need, and we very much respect that. But at the same time, we have a team culture that we think can sharpen that talent, and together we're going to make a party. No matter how good one dancer is, typically, unless you're really great, you look better in a team. So let's all go to the same party at the same time. And I'm looking forward to working together with anybody that's starting out in the state of Nebraska. Remember, apply for banking and finance first. I know you'll cut that out. But
Well, that is great advice. Kelly, we just want to thank you for your time today. It's been really fun getting to know you and hearing about your state of Nebraska career journey. For our listeners, if you want to check out our great career opportunities, including those with the Nebraska Department of Banking and Finance, go to statejobs.nebraska.gov and click on that Find a State Job link. While you're there, you can also find links to our Nebraska State Jobs social media pages, including Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. We'd love to have you follow us there as well to learn even more about our great careers. There's also a lot of great content on the Nebraska Department of Administrative Services YouTube channel, including this podcast. So make sure to search for us there and hit that subscribe button so you're notified when future podcast episodes drop. On behalf of our guest, Kelly, my co-host, Brian, and myself, Caitlin, I want to thank you for tuning in and learning more about the great careers here in the Good Life.